We are going to continue into our honorable mentions. There were a lot of great games today, but again, we're going to do what we did last time, similar to the just quick kind of spit off and give our mentions to two specific games per person. The games that I chose are going to be simple. It's going to be the Miami Dolphins losing and falling short to the Las Vegas Raiders. Vegas pushes their record to 3-0. They won by the score of 31-28. Derek Carr was questionable for the majority of this week with an injury, and he ends up playing very well, might I add. He did have one interception, and he was sacked 3 times, but he was able to throw for 386 yards and 2 touchdowns with an average of 9 yards per attempt in the air. They were able to run the ball very, very, very effectively against this Miami defense. Peyton Barber, I didn't even know that he was going to take the starting job from Kenyon Drake because Kenyon Drake was literally brought to Oakland to back up Josh Jacobs. But the former Tampa Bay Buccaneer absolutely balled out with a 111-yard performance with a touchdown, averaging 4.8 yards a carry. The team as a whole ran for a $140. Brian Edwards continues to show out, the tight end or former tight end slash receiver out of South Carolina. He had 89 yards. Henry Ruggs out of Alabama had 78 yards. Hunter Renfrow out of Clemson, 77 yards. And, usually the big name when you come out of Las Vegas is going to be Darren Waller. Darren Waller had a good game also, 5 catches for 54 yards. But to switch it over onto the other side, or should I say the other team, Jacoby Brissett did lead the Dolphins downfield, and they were able to put up 28 points. However, they were rushing touchdowns from what I can tell. Obviously, we only had 2 rushing scores. There were no passing scores. So, I mean, Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe they had a defensive touchdown as well, which is why they were able to put up that many points. But Jacoby Brissett threw the ball 50 times. They're without Tua Tagovailoa for the foreseeable future, at least I believe 3 weeks. He has fractured ribs. So Jacoby is going to be the starting quarterback for the foreseeable future. And he was able to do what he needed to do, at least to put them in a position to score. But he just, I mean, again, as a former Colt that Jacoby Brissett was, I know what Jacoby's able to bring to the table. And 4.4 yards per attempt in the air, 49 passing attempts, only 215 total yards. He was sacked twice, QBR of only 64. Jacoby Brissett had 7 rushes for 37 yards with a rushing touchdown of his own. But in terms of him being an effective quarterback in this league, I do not know how that's going to bode well for the Dolphins go forward. At least for the next month or so, at least that's what I'm hearing for Tua. Tua is probably going to be out for, I believe, 3 to 4 weeks. The Dolphins were able to at least, like I said, move the ball and have an effective game. They did come off starting hot. They were up 14-0 until Miami had that questionable call at the goal line where they threw a screen pass to Jalen Waddle, and Vegas gets safety. I know Kyle knows exactly the play I'm talking about. Super, super weird, but the Dolphins are struggling with or without Tua. So, like I said, Vegas gets the win. Kudos to them taking the dominant lead in the AFC West. Moving over into the next game, I chose the Buffalo Bills against the Washington football team. Josh Allen looked to be the Josh Allen of last season and completely annihilated the Washington football team. He had 358 yards, 4 touchdowns, and was not touched. He was not sacked at all the entire game. The Buffalo Bills actually ran the ball for over 122 yards, which is great on their part. They were able to also get a rushing score. And Cole Beasley led the way with receptions in terms of he had 13 total targets, 11 receptions, 98 yards. Cole Beasley is a slept-on wide receiver, not only in the slot, not only known for third down, but as someone who can create separation. And I think that he deserves some credit. So Buffalo's finding a way to turn it around, to spin it onto the Washington football team. Obviously, we know that Ryan Fitzpatrick was hurt in week 1, so Taylor Heineke ends up coming in. He had a decent game. I'm not going to say he had a terrible game. He had 2 touchdowns, but he also had 2 interceptions. He was 14 of 24 for 212 yards. The Washington football team was not able to really run the ball against the Buffalo Bills. They had 25 total attempts for 78 yards, which is an average of 3.1 yards per carry. Antonio Gibson led the way in terms of total yards with 73 yards with just 1 reception, which happened to be a touchdown. Scary Terry, otherwise known as Terry McLaurin, had 62 yards, but overall the Washington football team falls short by 22 total points, and the Buffalo Bills steamroll the football team, like I said, 43-21. So the AFC East continues to not go the way a lot of people expected. I mean, Buffalo struggled the first 2 weeks. Granted, Buffalo won last week and they won this week. And again, I know Buffalo won 35-0, but Josh Allen didn't look like the Josh Allen of last season. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I guess I used the wrong word in terms of struggle, but it didn't look like Buffalo like they should. And the Bills are starting to look like themselves, at least after this week. And the football team just still has a lot to learn or still has a lot to develop with Taylor Heineke. So those are my two honorable mentions for the week.
All right. So for me, I'm gonna go over the Ravens Detroit Lions game, and then we're gonna go over the Browns and Bears game. So I'm gonna start with the Ravens and Lions game because there's really only one person that I want to focus on for this, and that's Justin Tucker. Justin Tucker, at the end of the game, after Lamar Jackson was able to connect on a huge pass play that set them up to get in the field goal range in the first place with like 30 seconds to go. After that, Justin Tucker lines up a 66-yard field goal and nails it. I mean, a game-winning field goal from 66 yards out hits the crossbar and it just flips the right way and ends up hitting the net. And the Ravens leave Detroit with a 19-17 victory. And this is really just where I want to focus on Justin Tucker because I mean, I could talk about Lamar Jackson. He had a solid day, but you know, the focus here is Justin Tucker. The fact of the matter is, we are witnessing probably the greatest kicker in NFL history. He is by far and away the most accurate kicker that I've ever seen. And I've seen great kickers. I've seen Adam Vinatieri hit game-winning field goals in Super Bowls for the New England Patriots. I've even seen great kickers that are not of like my favorite team, like which is the Patriots. I've seen Sebastian Janikowski go on for 20 years, kicking clutch moment after clutch moment kick for the Oakland Raiders. But Justin Tucker, he reigns supreme over all of them. He's extremely accurate, and the fact of the matter is, he set the NFL record today on a game-winning kick that puts the Ravens at 2-1. And I'll tell you this: the Ravens needed this win. The Lions played them tough, and the Lions probably did more than enough to win them this game. But Justin Tucker literally just snatches victory from the jaws of defeat, and it puts the Baltimore Ravens at 2-1. This is a huge win for them. This is coming off the heels after a fantastic win over Kansas City last week. And I know I'm going over the top with Justin Tucker here, but I got to give this dude a lot of credit. Granted, he's a kicker. We don't really talk a lot about kickers on our segments that much, but I got to give the man his roses here. This dude is just on fire right now, and he came through with one of the best kicks I've ever seen. So I got to give a lot of credit to the guy. He came through when they needed it the most. And then to kind of focus on the second game that I mentioned with the Bears and the Browns. I mean, the Browns defense today, I mean, kudos to them. 9 sacks against Justin Fields today. I mean, Justin Fields is getting his first start in the NFL. I mean, coming into the season as a rookie quarterback for the Chicago Bears, which just for some odd reasons, like Chicago can never like actually like field like a decent quarterback. They've never been able to do it. And the most exciting player that's probably come through Chicago's franchise, probably within like the last decade or so, gets sacked 9 times against the Browns. I mean, the Browns looked like world beaters today, and Myles Garrett was just a man on a mission. 4.5 sacks today. I mean, he must have like channeled his inner Chandler Jones because he was a one-man wrecking crew today. And I thought the Browns altogether, they were sensational today. I thought Baker was pretty good, and I thought the run game for the Browns was really good. They were able to get some consistent carries from Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. So just altogether, just a well-rounded performance from the Browns today. Basically, just beat the brakes off of the Bears. The Bears really had no shot, and that's why they won by essentially 3 touchdowns. And I mean, the Browns are sitting up at the top of the NFC. Excuse me, the NFC. They're sitting at the top of the AFC North, right alongside the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. And it really just kind of sets up like an interesting dynamic with the AFC North because you really got 3 teams that have been largely pretty successful so far. You've had the success of Joe Burrow with Cincinnati. You've had Lamar Jackson really kind of carrying his team on his back. And now you got the Browns. You got Baker Mayfield, who's leading the offense, but getting really good production from the running backs and Kareem Hunt. and Nick Chubb. And if Cleveland's defense can play like this on a consistent basis, they have a very good shot to compete for the top spot in the AFC North. But those are my two games that I wanted to mention for my honorable mentions. Really, two great performances from Justin Tucker and the Browns defense. I mean, those two performances had to be mentioned, and that's why I have them here.